ever just sat there and wondered why love feels so complicated? Why it can be so confusing and honestly sometimes just so painful? Well, today we're going to look into some science that might just have the answers you've been looking for. We're pulling everything from this incredible book, Attached, The New Science of Attachment. And it makes a really bold claim that the key to understanding our entire romantic life lies in something called attachment theory. Does this sound a little too familiar? That feeling when the early excitement of meeting someone new just dissolves into this cycle of anxiety? You're overthinking every single text, every pause in a conversation, just feeling like you're one wrong move away from completely sabotaging the whole thing. It's that nagging voice in your head worrying that maybe this time will be just like all the others. Or maybe you're on the other side of that coin. You meet someone great, things are going well, but then as soon as it starts to get real, you just feel this overwhelming urge to pull away. It feels like the walls are closing in, and you start looking for reasons to end it, wondering, why does this keep happening? It shouldn't be this hard. And, this isn't just about dating. It can be that quiet, deep ache in a long-term relationship, that feeling of living next to someone, but being a million miles away emotionally. You're in a partnership, but you've never felt more alone. Okay, so here's where Attached just changes the game. What if these struggles, these deeply personal, painful feelings, aren't your fault? What if they're not some fatal flaw in your character, but are actually predictable, scientifically backed patterns that millions of us are going through? So to really get how these patterns work, the book tells us the story of a couple named Tamara and Greg. And their story is just a perfect example of how two people who genuinely care about each other can get stuck in this painful, repeating cycle. So on one side, you have Tamara. She was all about closeness, comfort, and really feeling like she belonged with someone. Then you have Greg. He was a master of the mixed message. One minute he's pulling her in close, the next he's pushing her away, terrified of real commitment. And you can probably guess what happened next. The closer they got, the worse it got. The more intimacy Tamara needed, the more Greg needed to get away. It created this vicious cycle. Tamara got more and more anxious and preoccupied, which only made Greg feel more smothered and want even more distance. The thing is, they loved each other, but it wasn't enough. They were basically speaking two totally different emotional languages. So what is this invisible force, this programming that was pulling Tamara and Greg apart? Well, this gets us to the absolute heart of the book, adult attachment theory. Think of it like a new science, a new language that lets us decode why we and our partners act the way we do in relationships. And just to be clear, this is not some pop psychology fad. Attachment theory is rooted in hard science, in evolution. I mean, think about it. For our ancient ancestors, being alone was literally a death sentence. The humans who formed strong, dependent bonds were the ones who survived to pass on their genes. That basic biological need for a secure connection, it's still hardwired into our brains today. So this biological need shows up in three main attachment styles. And check out this breakdown, because it's pretty fascinating. About half the population is secure, but a huge chunk, almost the other half, falls into the anxious or avoidant camps. So if any of this is starting to sound eerily familiar, trust me, you are in very, very good company. So people with an anxious attachment style, they thrive on intimacy. They want to be super close to their partners, but they're also living with this constant nagging fear of being abandoned. Their emotional radar is always on, scanning for the tiniest sign that their partner might be pulling away. Now, on the flip side, you have the avoidant style. For them, intimacy feels like a loss of independence. They value their autonomy more than anything, so they keep people at an emotional arm's length to avoid feeling trapped or controlled by a partner. And finally, we get to the secure style. These are the people who are just comfortable with intimacy. They're warm, they're loving, and they don't spend a lot of time worrying about their relationship. They know how to communicate what they need, and they create this stable, reliable home base for themselves and their partner. So what happens when these different styles try to date each other? Well, here's the wild part. Very often, the two styles that clash the most are magnetically drawn to each other. This creates what the book calls the Anxious-Avoidant Trap, or, as I like to call it, the Anxious-Avoidant Dance. I mean, just look at this. It's a fundamental clash of needs. The anxious person wants closeness and reassurance, the very things the avoidant person is trying to escape. The anxious person needs to know exactly where they stand, but the avoidant person needs to keep things fuzzy and vague so they don't feel tied down. It's a perfect storm, right? Okay, now this diagram might look a little complicated, but the idea behind it is actually super simple. Let's start with the anxious partner. They feel a threat to the relationship, so their attachment system fires up and they try to get closer. But look what happens next. That move to get closer feels like a threat to the avoidant partner's independence, so their deactivating strategies kick in and they pull away. And of course, that withdrawal just confirms the anxious partner's worst fears, making them pursue even harder. You can see how it's this vicious cycle where each person's coping mechanism is the other person's biggest trigger. So why on earth do they keep getting into this dance? Because, and this is the crazy part, each person's behavior confirms the other's deepest held beliefs about relationships. The avoidant person thinks, see, I knew it. People are always so needy. And the anxious person thinks, see, I knew it. You can't rely on anyone. They always leave. It's this familiar, painful script they just keep acting out. So is this whole thing just hopeless? The good news is absolutely not. Just understanding the trap is the first giant step to disarming it. The path out of this cycle and toward a much more secure relationship is totally possible, but it does take conscious effort and a whole new set of tools. Here's the most important thing to remember. Your attachment style is not a life sentence. The book Attached really emphasizes that while these patterns are deep, they're also plastic. That means with awareness and some new strategies, you can literally rewire your brain and consciously shift toward a more secure way of relating to people. So what's the secret weapon here? What's the most powerful tool for breaking this cycle? It's all about learning a new way to talk to each other. It means replacing all those defensive reactions and protest behaviors with a language that actually builds safety and understanding. And this is what we're aiming for. Instead of, acting out to try and get a reaction or just shutting down completely to create space, effective communication is about being vulnerable and honest about what you actually need. It's a way to be heard without immediately putting your partner on the defensive. It turns an argument into a collaboration. So how do you actually do it? Well, it really boils down to these 5 principles. Be real about your feelings. Use I statements to own what you need. Get specific instead of saying things like, you always or you never. Avoid blame like the plague. And finally, and this is a big one, be assertive. Your relationship needs are valid. Period. Wow. And this comparison just makes it so clear. You never, that's a total accusation. It guarantees a defensive response. But I feel insecure when, that's an honest expression of vulnerability. It doesn't attack. It actually invites your partner to help you solve a problem, turning you into a team instead of opponents. And look, this kind of communication isn't just about stopping fights. It's the foundation for building something really incredible, a secure base. And that is the ultimate goal of a truly healthy partnership. This leads us to this really fascinating, kind of counterintuitive idea called the dependency paradox. I mean, we're so often told that depending on someone is a sign of weakness, but attachment science shows us that the exact opposite is true. Having a reliable partner that you can really count on doesn't make you weaker. It gives you the solid ground you need to go out and conquer the world. A secure base is that safe harbor. It's knowing you have someone who is your biggest cheerleader, someone who encourages you to grow, and someone who is a safe place to land when things get rough. It's the foundation that allows both partners to thrive, together and as individuals. So when you put it all together, a secure relationship really gives you these 4 things. The emotional safety to just be yourself, the consistency to trust they'll be there for you, the encouragement to chase your dreams, and a healthy interdependence where you're a team, not 2 people fighting for power. That's the core message. It's not about being perfect, it's about feeling safe and knowing your partner will respond. At the end of the day, what Attached really gives us is a new way to see things. It takes all the confusion and the blame out of love and replaces it with clarity. So the question isn't about finding the one or getting lucky in love anymore. It's about choice. Now that you have the blueprint, what kind of love are you going to build? A look into Attached gives you the insight, but the full book gives you the breakthrough. If you're ready to master your own mind, the link is in the description. Share this with someone who is also building their best self. Then like and subscribe to keep gaining clarity. Choose to grow.